We begin our coverage with the latest details. 28 people are unaccounted for in Victoria's bushfires. 2 people are confirmed dead. The Navy's rescuing hundreds of residents and tourists trapped at Malakuta in Victoria's East Gippsland region. A state of disaster has been declared for 6 local government areas in Victoria.
I am saddened to have to update you that the total number of people who cannot be accounted for has now grown to 28. It remains the case that 2 people can be confirmed as having lost their lives. There are 2 deceased persons. I'm still not in a position to provide you with further information about the second of those deceased persons. As soon as we can give you more information about that individual, we will do that. But of course we have grave fears for the safety and well-being of those 28 people who cannot be located. Having said that though, these numbers will move around. A number of people who were part of the original 17 were located yesterday. There's been some other people who we've not even been able to necessarily determine as being missing, who have never made it onto a list but have become known to family and friends only very recently after a period of absence. These numbers will move around. That's the nature of a very dynamic fireground, but I can confirm today, as at 9:30, there are 28 people that we cannot locate, and we are very concerned about their well-being. More broadly, I've had discussions with the Prime Minister today. I think Graham will speak to this in more detail. ADF are working seamlessly with Victoria Police in the main and our other emergency services. The Malakuta situation is developing as well as it could. It's a massive logistical task, but we're going to have more and more people out of Malakuta today, and communities, I think, are listening to the messaging, the very clear messaging about getting out of communities and certainly not going into those fire-affected communities anytime soon.
In New South Wales, one of the biggest evacuation operations in our history is underway on the state's south coast. The RFS has issued orders from Shoalhaven to the Victorian border and inland Kosciuszko National Park and Batlow in the Riverina. A 7-day state of emergency has been declared by the New South Wales Premier. Small isolated towns in East Gippsland are starting to be evacuated by sea and air. Joining us now from Bairnsdale is Patrick Murrell. Pat, Navy's ships carrying hundreds of evacuees will soon leave Malakuta.
Annalise, a mass evacuation is continuing here in East Gippsland as residents and holiday makers flee ahead of extremely dangerous conditions on Saturday. The biggest rescue evacuation operation is in Malakuta, where people have been surrounded by flames and sheltering on the beach for days now. About 1,000 people there are currently being loaded onto the HMAS Chulz, a naval humanitarian vessel which arrived yesterday morning. It's understood that everybody who wanted a spot on that ship got one. They're currently in the process of being ferried from the shores at Malakuta 1.5 kilometres out to where HMAS Chul is currently anchored. The process of loading everyone on will take a few hours, and then it'll be at least another 16 hours before it arrives at a deep sea port, possibly also in Gippsland. In addition to this, a number of other residents from Malakuta were evacuated via Army helicopters last night. They were the elderly and the frail, but the biggest will be that ship which is evacuating around 1,000 people in Malakuta. Take a listen.
People have been moving from the beach at Malakuta to the ships offshore. I believe just over 960 people have been registered to go onto the ships. It'll take quite some time, and it won't be until later this afternoon before those ships set sail for the Port of Hastings.
Now, there are still dozens of towns around East Gippsland that may remain isolated. There have been efforts to evacuate some people via helicopter, but the thick smoke in the area has been hampering those efforts. Some sections of road have been reopened because of these milder conditions, including the Princes Freeway between Bairnsdale and Orbost. There's now a large convoy of vehicles, a slow-moving queue here through Bairnsdale as people flee that eastern Gippsland region ahead of dangerous conditions on Saturday. It's a similar story in northeast Victoria as people have been ordered to evacuate from Corryong and also the Alpine regions. They've been told that their safety cannot be secured if they remain there.
And Pat, we do understand the Prime Minister will be visiting Gippsland later this morning.
That's right. Prime Minister Scott Morrison will visit Victoria's bushfires for the first time today. His first stop is here at the Lucknow Town Hall, which has been acting as a volunteer centre. Inside there are piles and piles of clothes, sleeping bags, water, food and other goods that people have donated, that charities have brought here. He'll meet with some of the volunteers and he may receive a frosty reception, though. When he visited the fire front yesterday in New South Wales, he was heckled by some fire-affected residents who have had their homes destroyed. Here's a bit of what happened yesterday. We don't have that at the moment, but after he visits the town hall here, he will be visiting the fire front before a media conference later this morning.